This has been the talk around town, and justifiably so. I think that my take also needs to be on this topic. We still have an undisputed heavyweight champion in the UFC, but now with a little bit more of controversy. That's a bar right there if you didn't get that. Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall defended his undisputed championship against Ciryl Gane. And unfortunately, we only got about 4 minutes of this matchup, which I thought was going to be an absolute banger. I thought we were on our way to see one of the best heavyweight championship bouts or heavyweight bout in a long time, in a very long time for this division, something that they desperately needed. And especially with these two guys, I believe clearing above, head and shoulders over everybody in this heavyweight division, it needs to get consolidated. We need to be able to see who is the truthful winner. But in this video, there are some answers that we need to. There's some questions, right? I got this one. I got this one flipped. That's how many questions that there is that we need to answer in this video. Did Tom Aspinall quit? Right? We got people on one side defending Tom Aspinall, name dropping, shameless plug, MMA guru, obviously, as a huge fan of Tom Aspinall, defending his boy 100%. On the other side, you got guys, again, shameless plug dropping, MMA Joey. You also got guys such as fighters like Dustin Poirier, not really pouring on to this whole thing, but giving his intake. Obviously, Chael Sonnen, Anthony, I want to curl in a ball Smith, and as well as the most ironic one to be able to give a take on this one, Aljamain Sterling. This one. It's a lot to get into. It is a lot. Did Tom Aspinall quit? I mean, there's so much to be able to get into this one. Nobody is really in his body to be able to really quantify and tell us all, nah, he's good, nah, he could have went on, nah. There's videos about Tom Aspinall talking after the fact of the fight being done, where he were to put a towel over his eye, as obviously a lot of people's already seen the video going around, and thinking that his eye is going to get a lot better, but unfortunately he couldn't be able to see out of it, or it closed so much, or his eyesight just completely rang out from it. And there's obviously videos going around where he was talking to a doctor, I'm assuming over there in Abu Dhabi or around that area, wherever they were, but obviously I know it was in the Saudi area, saying that the stoppage was a good stoppage, but there is no permanent damage to his eyes. And there's a lot of other fighters recently that we can be able to talk about, like Henry Cejudo in his matchup against Song Yadong, where he, took a picture and talked about all the things that he had with his eye and all these things. And thankfully, he doesn't have any long-term damage. But then again, we're not in Tom's body to be able to really say how things go. But based on what we have known beforehand and thinking about eye pokes and situations and scenarios of these things coming about. There was Stipe Miocic dealing with a lot of eye pokes to Daniel Cormier in his matchup, and he came from there, and he actually got a finish where he was getting dominated throughout the entirety of that fight to get back his heavyweight championship. Dustin Poirier, like I mentioned earlier, dealt with eye pokes. There's a lot of high-tier fighters that have dealt with eye pokes and eventually on their way either just continue to be able to fight, and whether they lost, and they kind of goes to the wayside, and not a lot of people remember about the eye poke situation. They just remember that they lost that matchup that they had, or they came back and win, and it was a great story about them getting eye poked, and they continued on and they fought like a warrior and having a spirit. And that's pretty much what the crux of this hotly topic debate that's going around, where people are saying that Tom is a flimsy, floozy guy, where I can be able to see it as well, where, when the tough's going tough and stuff isn't going his way, we'll get into that a little bit later as well, he kind of folds under it. looking for a way out. People are thinking that, well, if Tom was dominating this fight and he got eye poked or something like that, he probably would have continued on with the fight and just ended it or dominated or looked for a takedown. But since he was getting beat, he was getting bloodied up, he was in the fight in the cage a lot longer than what he's ever been towards his average time against all the other fighters that he's been against. Since he's having a little bit of pushback, it is a bad look. It is a bad look, regardless of the fact of him getting eye poked and it being egregious. It is a bad look. Tom Aspinall, I'm not going to say that Gane was clear and outright dominating Tom Aspinall. It was a close fight. It was close for as long as it went. But Gane was definitely winning. Gane was definitely having the better exchanges between Tom Aspinall. He was defensively responsible, a little bit too reactionary, but he was really doing what a lot of people thought Tom Aspinall was going to go do to him. And Tom was struggling with that. And this could be a motivator for him. But as well, it could be on the downside on him, making him a bit more emotional, get in there, get more reckless. And a lot of people look at this and they think of him as being a coward, of being a loser, of being a great hammer, but being a terrible nail. Sometimes you got to be able to be a nail to be a great fighter, so that way you can be able to take some punishment and also give some back. Not saying that Tom Aspinall is not that, but we haven't seen much of him in the octagon to be able to really quantify that. And since we haven't, and since the only time that we have seen him go through some type of adversity, and the moment that he does, and he does get eye poked, and it doesn't look as bad as others, but then you see the replay and then you see it's really bad. But then there's other fighters who got egregiously eye poked as well and they continued on. It's up in the air. It is up in the air for interpretation for a lot of people. It's something that we really need to, go into is these other fighters, man. Chael Sonnen, good fighter, never been a champion, and every single time that he tried to be able to get to that championship belt, never got the belt at all. Was a great talker, but he never was a champ, unfortunately for him. Anthony Smith, same thing. On paper, he beats every single person, but in the fight, he curls up in the ball and is ready to be able to get out of there, finished like a little baby, like a little baby in the cage. That's Anthony Smith. But I think the most ironic one to be able to talk about or have such a great and grand opinion on this fight and also what went down with the eye poke is Aljamain Sterling. Talk about just running away with it and looking for a way out to be able to do what you got to do. It is very ironic. It's also very hypocritical that Aljamain Sterling has such a stance about what he wants to be able to talk about Tom Aspinall. Brother, you were getting whooped on by Peter Yan. He got illegally kneed and acted your way out to be able to get a championship. And not only that, but you paraded around after the fact, and then you went on a title run that was unimpressive, in my honest opinion. And it was what it was, but everybody really didn't take you as seriously, knowing that you beat TJ Dillashaw with one shoulder and one arm. An old just coming back in out of retirement, Henry Cejudo. It got knocked out by Sean O'Malley with a bruised or like a broken rib, and Merab, your teammate, dominated him in they went with each other about 8 rounds in 2 fights. It's a bad look. It's a very bad look. And in the rematch, it was a close fight that you edged out, but Aljo, like, you talking about getting a way out, doing all these things, and Tom just looking to be able to secure his bag and secure his championship, brother, you did the same damn thing. Let's not get into that one, Aljo. But we also need to be able to talk about Ciryl Gane. A lot of people have been very outright and outspoken as well, especially as soon as the fight started, talking about cutting Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane is a cheat. Ciryl Gane has been doing this for quite some time. Ciryl Gane is one of the worst fighters of all time. How can he be able to still fight when he's an absolute garbage human being? We need to slow down. All right, we need to let's be honest with ourselves about a few things in terms of our conversation. Yes, Ciryl Gane has been known for doing certain fouls, particularly shots to the back of the head. He is known for that. He is known for, having some eye pokes here and there. Not as egregious as John Jones, if we're being quite honest, but it has been on his resume in terms of his reputation of the fighter that he is. It, I think, was, I'm not going to say a honest mistake. I do think that it was incidental. But even then, what are you doing having your hand right over in somebody's face completely open? You're just asking to eye poke the dude in front of you. While, yes, I understand things happen and, you're crying and you're emotional and you don't want these things to be able to happen because you want to be able to continue the fight and, you train so hard and all this other stuff. Brother, you put yourself in that position in that same way. Again, not saying that I think Khan was doing this just to be able to maybe get his way out of the fight and then get into a rematch. I don't think that was the scenario whatsoever because he was the one looking like that he was winning that round and potentially the fight in general. But doing things like that, having your hand completely wide open in somebody's range, in somebody's face, and gouging both of their eyes almost out, brother, you're asking it for yourself. And the UFC, the commission, they need to be able to take more note of this and be more strict with their punishment because if they were, things like this would happen a lot less and people would be a lot more conscious about what they were doing, regardless of being an accident or doing it on purpose. Because we know, obviously, there's some fighters that do this on purpose. And last but not least, to be able to end off this debate, was Tom looking for a way out? And that kind of goes into the first question, what I asked earlier about did he quit? I think that you can't be able to be on either side. I think you have to look this right down the barrel and be as an unbiased as you can be, coming from me, being on both sides. Me liking Gane, me also liking Aspinall, me predicting that Aspinall was going to win, but Gane was looking like he was on his way to damn near fraud checking Tom Aspinall, for being quite honest, in that matchup. Even if Tom wasn't looking for a way out, it damn sure did look like it. It did. It really did. As his body language, his talk and conversation, knowing that there's not no long-term damage to his eyes, and obviously there's nothing really wrong. But even now, the fight has gone since Saturday, and it's a Tuesday, Wednesday around this time, and he still can't be able to see out of his eye. I mean, again, I'm not in this dude's body. I can't be able to say about what is going on with his eyeballs and what's wrong with it or what isn't. But getting in a matchup, knowing that you're an absolute killer in there. You get in there and you get out very quickly. You make easy work out of every single matchup that you've been in so far in your career in the UFC. And the moment that you face some type of adversity, you kind of do look for a way out, brother. And it does look that way, man. It does look that way. I'm not going to say that Tom Aspinall and his vision and his eyes are not a concern and not something that we can be able to take lightly. I do think that, yes, it is a serious thing that we need to be able to take into consideration. And I think that the injury was as bad as it was because he really did put, that being gone, his freaking fat fingers all the way into his brain. So I will say that. But at the same time, getting your nose busted up, getting out jabbed, getting out footworked, and yes, you were having some success throughout the fight, but you were on your way to the second round, and that's something that I predicted. I did predict that it would go to the second round, but eventually Aspinall would get the knockout. But the way that Gane was looking and moving and doing the things that he was doing, I'm not so sure about that. I am not so sure about that. I'm hoping and praying for a rematch for this matchup to be able to happen either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, because we need to be able to see this matchup conclude in totality and have no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and we can be able to continue to move on in this heavyweight division. Obviously, like this video. If you obviously like this video, comment your opinions on what you think about Tom Aspinall versus Ciryl Gane. Did you think Tom Aspinall quit? Did you think that Tom Aspinall was looking for a way out? Do you think that Ciryl Gane is an egregious cheater that should get cut from the UFC? Not going to happen. But is that your opinion? Leave it in the comment section below. We can chop it up. We can talk about it however you want to be able to do that. And subscribe. You're a UFC fan. You're an MMA fan. We need to be able to have this dialogue to really get down to the nitty gritty of these fighters and these fights. We have to. We got to get it done. And thank you guys again for watching again. And peace.